Our last presenter for this session is none other than Curtis Richardson. Curtis is a stalwart in the Tallahassee community. He is a champion in education in Gaston County and in Leon County. In Gaston County, he was the school psychologist for the district in Quincy. Here in Leon County, he does it well and he wins. He has served 2 terms in the House of Representatives for the state of Florida, and while he was in the legislature, he received the Legislator of the Year and received the Friend of Education Award, telling you just how much that is a part of his life. He's currently running for the City Commission. One of the things that I like about Curtis, and I've noted about Curtis, is how eloquent he speaks and how influential he is in speaking. And indeed, I want that type of person making the case for me. He does that for the people of Leon County, and he's done that for students. Curtis Richardson.
Well, y'all, I just saw. Good morning. I guess it's still morning. Okay, no, it's a little afternoon. The pressure is on from that introduction by Sharon and the fact that I am the last speaker between you and lunch. And so I won't be long, but there are some important things they've asked me to talk about this morning. This whole issue of school choice. It's a broader issue than choice. Choice is one component of the state's accountability system that I have been involved with since its second inception. Dr. Webster talked about the early phase of school reform in America. Well, we in the mid-1990s went through a second phase of school reform in Florida, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I want to thank Dr. Webster and all of those that have worked to put on this summit this morning because this is a very important issue. It's timely and it's a critical issue not only to African Americans and minorities, but to our society in general, to our very democratic form of government. That's why public education was created in America, not to educate the masses, but to make sure that they would be able to participate in this democratic form of government of ours. You can't have ignorance and democracy. And so that's why public education was established in this great country that we live in. And unfortunately, for so many years, those that were enslaved in America didn't have an opportunity for that education. And so that's why there were those who you've heard, fought and died for us to have the opportunity to be educated. And they understood the importance of Africans and African Americans being educated in America and being able to participate in that democratic form of government. I'm getting there, y'all. I'm just kind of setting the context here. And so then you had the landmark cases, Plessy versus Ferguson, the Board of Education decision in 1954 that brought about school segregation or disintegration, as was said earlier, because it was recognized the importance of public education and what that could do for those who had been enslaved. I grew up in a segregated school environment in the South, a little town called Green Cove Springs, just south of Jacksonville. And so I know what that experience was like. And although we got a good education, because our parents knew that in order for us to live a better life than what they lived, education was the key to us getting out of that environment. And so of my 7 brothers and sisters, all 8 of us graduated high school and went on to some level of post-secondary education because my parents insisted on that. They expected no less than that. And there were others like us all over this country. And so we knew that education was the great equalizer in our country. And there were thousands of African Americans who took advantage of that, and a great African American middle class was created where our dreams were limitless, and we became CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies, and scientists and engineers and lawyers and doctors and teachers. And now we're starting to lose that. And we're losing it because of our education system. And what's happening in education in Florida and states all across this country. And all of what we're talking about this morning, all that we have talked about, involves public policy. And Sharon, that's why I do what I do. I ran for the Leon County School Board as a single black male with no children, because I saw what was happening in the public schools in Leon County and school districts across this state, where it depended on where you lived as to the quality of education that you received. Just like it was when I was in school and we got the textbooks with white children's names written in them and pages torn out and desks carved up. Those were the resources that we got. And I saw that happening in Leon County. And I knew that something had to be done about it. And so I knew that I had to be where the decisions were being made. This young lady talked about, if you're not at the table, you're part of the menu. Well, I wanted to be at that table. So I ran for the Leon County School Board so that I could be a voice for those who didn't have a voice, to make sure that the same resources were being put in schools on the south side of town as they were on the north side of town, where we were building new schools within the latest technology and innovations. So that's why I decided to run for public office and started on the school board here in Leon County. And we made some differences. We laid the foundation for this A school district that we now have here in Leon County. But what's sad in a county, and it's not just Leon County, but this is where I live, where the African American population in the county is about 35%. We now have a minority school district, public school district. And it's because of decisions that have been made at that tall building downtown. These are public policy issues. And we've got to make sure that we have people representing us in those public policy positions, from the President of the United States down to every local school board throughout this country. There is no other option for us. We don't have the luxury of staying home. There were those who died so that the right to vote was extended to us, when it is extended to anyone who comes to this country and it becomes a naturalized citizen. There's nobody in this room who would lay down their lives so that other people could vote. But there were people who did, and we now won't take advantage of it and elect people to office that will represent us. And it ain't always got to be somebody that look like us. Skin folk ain't always kinfolk. It's got to be people who have our best interest at heart and our children's future in mind. That's what we've got to look for when we look for people who we give our vote to. It needs to be earned, not given. And so that's why I chose to run for public office and serve not only on the school board, but the legislature, and now am on the Tallahassee City Commission. My background, as Sharon mentioned, is in education, and so I've been able to combine the two. I'm a school psychologist by training. I've worked in the State Department of Education. I was an education cabinet aide to the late Governor Lawton Childs. I've been an education consultant, and now I'm the STEM coordinator for the Gadsden School District, a poor rural school district in North Florida, where we're trying to give our kids the opportunity to pursue majors in the STEM fields and to go into STEM careers. Children who otherwise wouldn't have those kinds of opportunities. But it was during my time in the State Department of Education, working under then Commissioner of Education Betty Castor, when we started education reform in Florida. Because what was happening during that time was we were graduating kids and giving them high school diplomas that were meaningless. Children who were coming out of school with a high school diploma after 12, 13 years of school and couldn't read on a third grade level. And businesses were telling us that, hey, if we're going to compete internationally, We've got to have children, we've got to have workers who can assume these high-tech jobs that we were starting to create during that time. Unless we wouldn't be able to compete with the Chinas and the Japans and the Indias of the world. And so we started school reform during the mid-1990s. It was a policy passed by a democratically controlled legislature under a Democratic Commissioner of Education, and we started along that path. I was appointed as the interim director of the Commission on School Reform and Accountability during that time. And we brought everybody to the table that had a stake in education, the teachers' unions, the business community, parents, students from our colleges and universities, our post-secondary education institutions, to try to map out a strategy for what school reform should look like in Florida to ensure that if a child went to school for 1 year, that they learned 1 year of knowledge in that period of time. And so we set goals for education, and we had objectives, and we talked about a system of standardized testing that would ensure, because that's really the only way that you can hold schools accountable is through not the over-reliance on testing that we have today, but a system of assessment that would ensure that kids achieve 1 year of learning after 1 year of instruction. Well, shortly after we started that initiative, an election took place. And in 2000, Jeb Bush was elected governor of the state of Florida. And he and the Republican Party, and I'm going to make this partisan, y'all, because it is, had a different notion of what school reform should look like. And so they abandoned all the reforms that the Democrats had put in place, and we're starting to see some buy-in from the business community. We had established councils where parents and the business community and those interested in education would be involved in making decisions about what happens in our public schools throughout the state. And after that election in 2000, that all changed. And then we were given school vouchers and opportunity scholarships and so-called school choice, and a school grading system, and third grade retention, and this over-reliance on standardized tests. And it's mushroomed in the 20 years since then. And let me tell the FEA, my wife used to be an FEA attorney for 18 years before she was elected to a judgeship. Do not drop that suit against the scholarships. Do not. I'm not opposed to educational choice. I'm not opposed to charter schools. I'm not opposed to private schools, but not at the expense of our system of public education in the state of Florida. Fully fund us. Give us the same opportunities to be creative and innovative as you claim that charter schools would be. We were sold a bill of goods with charter schools. They said that they would be innovative, that they would be laboratories of experimentation and teach the public schools how to do it right. But they've been everything but that. They've been ways to get children out of our public schools. They've been ways to fund charter school management companies and make people rich because they saw the millions of dollars that existed in public education, and they wanted a piece of that. And so now we've got 30 districts with charter schools teaching almost 250,000 students, and they have done no better. Even though they get to cherry pick their students, they have done no better than some of our better performing charter schools or public schools. Have done no better. Some of them have done worse. They open, they close, there's no accountability for taxpayers' money, but we're talking about people who don't want to raise taxes. No accountability. Millions, billions of dollars have been wasted. We pay for charter school buildings, and when the charter school closes, the taxpayer has no control over that real estate. They've taken away the constitutional authority of school boards to approve or not approve these charter schools. Then it became the charter schools wanted the capital outlay money. There's been times in recent years where charter schools have gotten more capital outlay money for building and renovation than our traditional public schools have gotten. But this is the kind of education reform. It used to be a time when a kid attended a school, it was called an attendance zone, where you attended the school that you were zoned for, and with very few exceptions did you attend the school outside of that zone. And so now we've got this school choice. And what it has done, talking about not knowing your history and being doomed to repeat it, we've got schools in Florida now that are more segregated. We've got schools in Florida now that were more segregated than when I attended school. And not just Florida, but states all across this country because of this so-called school choice. There could be school choice in the public schools. We have magnet programs in public schools where parents are able to move their kids from one school to another based on public school choice. But that wasn't the goal of these policymakers that sit in that building. They're beginning to achieve their goal and to force more and more of our students out of school. For the last 2 months, in the public school system, instruction has literally stopped. It has been focused almost exclusively on standardized testing for the last 2 months. And over-reliance, a standardized testing industry that is making money off the public schools in the state of Florida. It's an industry, it's a money-making industry. And so that's what this school choice is all about. And if we aren't involved in making sure that we have people who represent us in state capitals and in these policy-making positions from school boards on up, then we're going to continue to slide down this slippery slope of returning to where we were 50 years ago. We can't afford that. Our society can't afford that. We're in a technological age where we need every able-bodied person rowing the boat towards excellence in this country. We can't afford to let any mind not matter. And our public schools are the way that we make that happen. Some of the things that happened in this recent legislative session, and then Sharon, I'll be done, that we all need to know about because this is important. What they've done now is open up school borders. There are no more boundaries. If a student wanted to come to Leon County from Gadsden or Liberty, they could. And there's nothing the school board can say about it, as long as there's room in that school. Athletic participation. We know that recruiting already happens. Now students can go from whatever school, if they play football in the fall at Childs High School, they can go, if there's a winning team in Wakulla County, they can go to Wakulla County and play basketball in the spring. This is law, y'all, in the state of Florida. House Bill 7029, check it out. A parent can request that their child be transferred from a teacher's classroom. The legislature is positioning itself to control, talking about state-run education. They don't want the federal government involved. But we've almost got a state-run education system in the state of Florida. School boards are almost superfluous. The superintendent is just there to carry out the whims of the legislature. You know, teachers being given bonuses based on invalid ACT and SAT scores, some of them decades old. But we won't give our teachers, we won't fund education where we can pay our teachers so that we can recruit those African American males. A beginning teacher in Gaston County today makes $30,000 a year. How many of you all could live on $30,000 a year and support a family? And that's just not Gaston County, that's all over the state of Florida. We've got some serious issues. I would leave you all with this. If you are, and as a politician I have to do it, if you are not registered to vote, the first place you need to go when you leave this room today is to a supervisor's of election office and register to vote. But not only register to vote, participate in that process. Make sure that you know who the candidates are, what the issues are, because this is important. I tell people all the time, I'll be 60 years old in October. I've got fewer years ahead of me than I do behind me. But I do what I do, Sharon, in this community and throughout this state because I've got 2 young daughters, 10 and 15 years old. And I'd be damned if I'm gonna leave this place any less for them than those that came before us left it for me. We owe that to them. And so we've got to get out there and we can't get comfortable. We can't relax. We've got to get out there and make sure that we are having our voices heard where the public policy decisions are being made. Thank you all so much for allowing me to be a part of this morning.